What happens when the first country in Asia legalizes same-sex marriage and dares the world to watch? This is Taiwan. Not just a place on the map, but a battlefield where love fought back and won. Behind every courtroom victory were real people, real scars, and love that refused to die. These aren't just love stories, they're revolutions. So which couple's story will stay with you long after the screen fades? Tell us below. Your voice matters here. First, Tang Chi and Wang from Exclusive Love. Tang Chi didn't plan on falling in love with a student. Wang didn't expect a substitute teacher to flip his whole world upside down. And neither of them knew that love would show up. It started with distance. One man with a chalkboard between him and the world, the other hiding behind sarcasm and teenage bravado. Chi was strict, composed, hiding more than he let on. Wang all fire and impulse, young, bold, and always pushing buttons, especially Chi's. But here's the twist. The more they clashed, the deeper their connection grew. Because sometimes love doesn't whisper. Sometimes it argues first. Every hallway glance felt like a secret. Every after-class moment, too long, too charged, too dangerous. They knew the world wouldn't approve. Teacher and student, it wasn't just taboo, it was untouchable. But love doesn't wait for permission. It sneaks in during late-night texts, the way eyes linger just a second too long, and the unspoken promise of, "I see you," even when no one else does. Wang didn't fall for a role model. He fell for the man behind the rules, wounded, kind, and terrified of what this meant. And Chi? For once in his life, he let his heart speak louder than his fear. Because real love doesn't ask if it's allowed. It asks if it's worth it. It didn't mean to be role models. But when the world told them to walk away, they stayed. Quietly, gently, unapologetically. Their love wasn't loud, it wasn't perfect, but it was honest. And in a world that still questions two men holding hands in public, sometimes the most radical thing you can do is simply stay. Exclusive Love wasn't just a story about crossing lines. It was about tearing down walls and reminding all of us that the heart doesn't follow rules. It follows truth. Did their story move you? Did it make you think about the quiet kind of courage? Tell us below, because stories like theirs, they still need to be seen. Then, young Zixiang and Shaopeng from See Your Love, 2024. Young Zixiang was the kind of man who didn't speak unless spoken to. A quiet barista with careful hands and eyes that had long forgotten how to shine. His cafe wasn't just a job, it was his hiding place. A shelter where routine masked the ache he never dared name. And then, as if written into a script meant to shake him awake, Shaopeng walked in, wearing bold patterns, carrying unspoken storms, and ordering his coffee like it was an act of rebellion. At first, they barely tolerated each other. Zixiang thought Shaopeng was loud, careless, too quick with charm. Shaopeng thought Zixiang was distant, cold, maybe even rude. But fate has a strange sense of humor. Because sometimes two people don't collide. They crack each other open, softly, stubbornly, one conversation at a time. Their bond grew like steam from a cup. Slow, invisible at first, but warm enough to change the air. Shaopeng kept showing up. Same time, same smile, different excuses. He said he liked the pastries, but really? He liked the way Zixiang listened, not with his ears, but with a stillness that made even Shaopeng's worst memories feel safe to say out loud. And Zixiang, who once moved through life like a ghost, started noticing things again. The way Shaopeng tapped his fingers when nervous. The way his laughter filled corners Zixiang didn't know were empty. They never declared anything out loud. There was no dramatic kiss in the rain. Just a moment, one night, when Shaopeng stayed long after closing time, and Zixiang made him tea without asking. They sat in silence. And in that silence, something beautiful took root. Not because it was perfect, but because it was real. What made their love unforgettable wasn't how it began, but how it stayed. They weren't chasing gestures, they were building quiet mornings, packed lunches, inside jokes. A life where their love didn't have to perform, it simply existed. They faced judgment. Of course they did. Some people whispered, some looked away. But Zixiang and Shaopeng, they just kept showing up for each other. In the smallest, strongest ways. Because queer love doesn't need to be loud to be revolutionary. It just needs to be seen. Have you ever found love when you least expected it? Have you ever held someone's hand and known without a word that it was finally okay to stop hiding? Tell us in the comments. Let your story echo theirs. Next, Wei Qian and Wei Yuan, their story, Unknown, 2024. At first glance, the story of Wei Qian and Wei Yuan sounds like a classic, found family drama. Wei Qian, the responsible older brother figure, takes in not only his younger sister, Wei Li, but also a scrappy, wide-eyed street kid named Wei Yuan. Their bond? Built on survival, shared meals, sleepless nights, stolen moments of laughter between chaos. To the outside world, they were just three kids trying to make it work under one roof. But inside those walls, something unspoken was growing. Something more complicated than just brotherly love. Something that made every glance linger too long and every touch feel like a spark they were both too scared to name. As the years rolled on, Jiwan's feelings didn't fade, they deepened. Watching Wei Qian work himself to the bone just to keep the family afloat, seeing his quiet sacrifices, his fierce protectiveness, it all blurred the line between gratitude and love. Jiwan knew what he felt, but saying it out loud, that could destroy everything. Wei Qian, on the other hand, played the part of the oblivious older brother a little too well. But viewers weren't fooled. The way his eyes softened when Jiwan walked into a room, the way he'd risk everything for him, yeah, that wasn't just sibling affection. That was love. Messy, forbidden, heart-aching love. And when moments of vulnerability cracked their defenses, like late-night confessions and teary-eyed standoffs, the tension was impossible to ignore. Unknown doesn't hand you a perfect fairy tale ending tied up with a bow. Instead, it delivers something more real and way more gut-wrenching. Wei Qian and Jiwan's story is about two people fighting against what society says they're allowed to feel, while slowly realizing that some feelings aren't meant to be buried. It's about love that grows in silence, explodes in confession, and lingers in every awkward pause and shaky breath afterward. Their journey forces both characters and the audience to ask, when does family become something more? And when it does, are you brave enough to fight for it? One thing's for sure, after watching their story unfold, you'll never look at the word brotherhood the same way again. After that, Xia and Jiang Chi, from Stay By My Side, 2023. What if your soulmate came wrapped in ghost stories and bad tempers? That's exactly how Stay By My Side begins, with Xia, a sweet college kid who hears voices from the other side, and Jiang Chi, the ice-cold roommate who doesn't believe in anything he can't punch. Their first encounters? Chaotic. Between the haunting nightmares and the awkward silences, you'd think romance was the last thing on the script. But then came the soft glances, the quiet cups of tea, the moments where Jiang Chi, under all that grump, started to care. And Xia? He found someone who made him feel safe in a world that scared him to sleep. What started with ghostly whispers turned into something undeniably human, something tender. Their story isn't loud. It hums, gentle, steady, and real. As Xia struggles to balance his sixth sense with the pressures of college life, it's Jiang Chi who steps in, sometimes with tough love, sometimes with silent understanding. They don't fall in love through grand gestures. They fall in love in the spaces between. Late-night chats, borrowed headphones, and unexpected hand touches. And when the supernatural threatens to push them apart, it's their very real bond that keeps them together. The tension is real. The stakes feel high. But what makes this story so powerful? It's how they choose each other. Again and again, even when it's hard, even when it's scary. Xia and Jiang Chi's love isn't perfect, but it's honest. It's beautifully awkward, fiercely loyal, and unapologetically queer. In a genre filled with fantasy, theirs feels possible. Because sometimes, love isn't about fireworks. It's about finding that one person who makes your fears a little quieter, and your world a little brighter. Stay By My Side doesn't just tell a love story, it honors it. Two boys, one haunted dorm, and a connection that defies both logic and labels. Their journey reminds us that same-sex love doesn't need to scream to be heard. Sometimes, it just needs to be felt. and we felt every second. And if you're ready for more stories that celebrate love in all its beautiful, messy forms, don't forget to like, subscribe, and stay by our side. Following them, Fanzerui and Baizong Yi, the heart of Kiseki. Dear to me, 23. Sometimes, love finds you in the most unexpected places. Fanzerui was living a life full of shadows, trying to stay invisible. Baizong Yi, on the other hand, was all light, studying medicine, holding on to hope, and believing in second chances. When their paths crossed, it wasn't part of any plan, but somehow, the moment their eyes met, something shifted. A quiet connection sparked, tender, unspoken, but impossible to ignore. At first, they were just trying to survive. Zerui needed help. Zong Yi offered it without hesitation. But in those small moments, bandaging a wound, sharing a meal, exchanging glances, something deeper began to grow. Neither of them said much, but sometimes the heart speaks louder than words. What started as a simple act of kindness slowly became something life-changing. Their story wasn't a whirlwind, it was a slow burn, the kind of connection that sneaks up on you. Zerui had built walls for protection, but Zong Yi never tried to knock them down. He simply waited. Calm, patient, present. Over time, Zerui began to open up, not with grand gestures, but with little things, a softened expression, a shared laugh, a moment of stillness. They didn't need to declare anything out loud. Their care for each other was clear in every gesture. It wasn't about drama, it was about trust, about showing up even when it's hard. Their bond didn't just grow in the bright moments, it grew in the quiet ones. And that made it real, gentle, unshakable. What makes Fanzerui and Baizong Yi so unforgettable isn't just the chemistry. It's the care. It's how they saw past each other's mistakes and chose to believe in something better. Their relationship wasn't about labels or rules. It was about choosing one another, again and again, even when the world around them was uncertain. Kiseki, Dear to Me gave audiences something truly meaningful. A story where love between two men wasn't used for shock or spectacle, but portrayed with depth, dignity, and heart. It reminded us that love, when it's honest and kind, has the power to heal, to transform, to inspire. And in the end, isn't that what we're all looking for? Moving on, Jin and Liu Li, their bond from VIP Only, 2023. At first glance, VIP Only seems like just another slice of life drama set in a cozy little noodle shop. But let's be real, this isn't just about soup and side dishes. This is about Jin and Liu Li, two men who walked into each other's worlds at the most unexpected time. Jin, the brooding, soft-spoken ex-creative director turned restaurant owner, and Liu Li, the emotionally chaotic, slightly dramatic but totally lovable BL novelist, suffering from the world's most inconvenient case of writer's block. Their first interactions? Awkward at best, borderline flirtatious at worst. Every glance across the noodle counter came with a side of unspoken questions. Was this friendship? Curiosity? Or something simmering under the surface, like the broth Jin spent hours perfecting? Things took a sharp and deliciously awkward turn when Jin offered to help Liu Li with research for his next novel. How? By staging fake dates. Yes, you heard that right. From casual walks to heart-fluttering moments of almost touching. These practice dates were supposed to be harmless. Just scenes for a book, right? Except, neither of them stayed in character for long. Liu Li's nervous glances became real. Jin's stoic face started to crack with soft smiles that didn't feel rehearsed. Suddenly, those scripted moments, accidental hand touches, late-night talks, long silences, started to feel like confessions. The line between fiction and reality completely erased. And for the first time in both their lives, they had to ask, were they still acting or finally being honest? What makes Jin and Liu Li's story hit so hard isn't just the romance, it's the courage behind it. Two men, each carrying their own emotional baggage, found something real, something healing in each other. VIP Only doesn't rely on dramatic declarations or over-the-top moments. Instead, it builds a love story from lingering looks, late-night ramen, and quiet promises that sometimes love shows up when you least expect it, and in the most ordinary places. Their journey reminds us that LGBTQ+ love doesn't need to be loud to be powerful. It just needs to be seen, understood, and respected. So the next time someone tells you that BL dramas are just fan service, show them Jin and Liu Li, two imperfect people, one beautifully real love story, and a reminder that every heart deserves a seat, even if it's a VIP-only one. Then comes Xing Yu and Xia Jiang Chi from You Are Mine 2023. From the very first episode of You Are Mine 2023, it felt like the universe had thrown together the world's most unlikely couple. On one side, Xing Yu, a sweet, soft-hearted guy with more optimism than office experience. On the other side, Xia Jiang Chi, the cold, no-nonsense CEO with a glare sharp enough to cut glass. Their first meeting? Pure chaos. Xing Yu stumbles through his new job like a lost puppy in a corporate maze, while Xing Zhou watches from his corner office, already regretting every hiring decision he's ever made. But here's the twist. Behind every sarcastic comment and icy stare was a man slowly and unwillingly falling for his sunshine-colored assistant. The heart of this story? It's not about dramatic declarations or Hollywood-style kisses. It's about stolen glances in meeting rooms, lingering touches over coffee cups, and arguments that end with both men secretly wondering, why does my heart race when he's near? Xing Zhou tries everything to keep his walls up. Extra work hours, strict deadlines, emotional distance. But Xing Yu, he breaks through with laughter, late-night snacks, and moments of unfiltered kindness. Slowly, those cold office walls become something warmer, softer, maybe even romantic. And just like that, what started as a workplace disaster turns into something neither of them saw coming. You Are Mine isn't just a BL series. It's a love letter to every same-sex relationship that grew quietly in spaces where love wasn't always welcome. Xing Yu and Xia Jiang Chi show us that love doesn't need big speeches or fireworks. Sometimes it's just two people showing up for each other again and again until one day it feels impossible to imagine life apart. Their story reminds us that LGBTQ+ love is soft, fierce, awkward, funny, and completely valid. It's about healing, growth, and letting someone in, even when every part of you wants to push them away. And in the end, they don't just find love. They redefine what it means to choose each other, against the odds and against their own fears. Now, Bai Lang and Jin Shannon, starring in My Tooth Your Love, 2022. Bai Lang wasn't looking for love. He was just trying to fix his teeth. And maybe his heart too. On the surface, Bai Lang was the walking definition of confidence. Stylish, sharp-tongued, with a flair for flirting and an Instagram feed that could set anyone's screen on fire. But beneath the charm was a man still nursing wounds from an ex who vanished without closure, leaving him with trust issues bigger than his dental phobia. So when Dr. Jin Junan, Taipei's most famously handsome dentist, walked in, calm and collected behind those polished glasses, Bai Lang did what any emotionally confused man would do. He ran. Literally. Their conversations moved from plaque and fillings to past heartbreaks and future dreams. Bai Lang, who once claimed he didn't believe in second chances, found himself drawn to Jin Shunan's quiet strength, his ability to just be there without fixing, without judging. And Shunan, who had lived most of his life with walls made of politeness and professionalism, found in Bai Lang the chaos he didn't know he craved. There were missteps, of course. Moments when trauma talked louder. It wasn't a fairy tale. It wasn't perfect, but it was honest. And in a world where same-sex love still hides behind whispers in many places, theirs was loud in all the right ways. Not flashy, just real. By the end of My Tooth Your Love, the chair in that dental clinic wasn't just a place of treatment. It had become a witness to healing. Emotional, not just physical. And their love? It didn't scream for attention. It didn't need approval. It simply stood there, quietly defiant in its truth. Bai Lang learned that vulnerability wasn't weakness, it was bravery. And Shunan realized that being in love didn't mean losing control. It meant finding someone worth the risk. Together, they showed us that queer love doesn't have to follow a script. It can start with awkward checkups, unfold through shared takeout dinners, and bloom in a world that still sometimes pretends it doesn't exist. Their story wasn't about shock, it was about softness. About two men who dared to choose each other day after messy, beautiful day. And maybe, just maybe, That's the kind of love we all deserve, even if it starts with a toothache. Next, Kent and Kane, the duo from Craving You 2020. At first glance, Kent and Kane couldn't be more different. Kent, the brooding pastry chef with a serious face and hands that craft desserts almost too beautiful to eat. Kane, the loud, chaotic, internet-famous singer whose life revolves around catchy hooks, screaming fans, and avoiding anything with more than 10 grams of sugar. So when fate, or rather, a pushy bakery manager named Cora, forces them into a partnership to promote Kent's shop, let's just say, fireworks weren't on the menu. But tension? Oh, there was plenty of that. From day one, Kane teased, Kent glared, Kane joked, Kent rolled his eyes. It was like watching a rom-com in slow motion with extra frosting. Yet, somewhere between flower fights and late-night baking sessions, something started to change. Kane's sarcastic smile softened whenever Kent nervously adjusted his apron. And Kent, he started making desserts Kane would actually like, just because. For Kane, humor had always been his armor. Flirting, just part of the game. But with Kent, it stopped being a game real quick. Every glance lingered a little too long. Every accidental touch burned just a little too hot. And suddenly, those silly bakery promo videos weren't the most exciting thing happening behind the counter. Kent, on the other hand, wasn't used to feeling anything. Years of hiding behind recipes and routines had kept him safe. But Kane? Kane stormed into his quiet life like a sugar-fueled hurricane. And the more Kent tried to stay cool, the more obvious it became that he was melting faster than whipped cream on a summer day. Their chemistry wasn't loud. It wasn't full of dramatic confessions or big, sweeping gestures. It was in the small things. The stolen glances. The late-night texts. The way Kane stayed behind after filming, just to help Kent close the shop. Craving You isn't just a BL story about desserts and internet fame. It's about two men learning that love doesn't always look like what you expect. It's messy, it's scary, and sometimes it's served with a side of sarcasm and too much powdered sugar. But most importantly, it's real. And in a world where same-sex love is still fighting for space at the table, Kent and Kane showed us that sometimes love is worth the mess. Coming up, Neil and C from First Note of Love, 2024. Neil wasn't just famous, he was a legend. Frontman of the hit band Magnet, heartbreaker of an entire generation, and the guy with a voice that could melt steel, or at least teenage hearts across Taiwan. But fame comes with a price, and for Neil that price was grief. After losing his brother Matt, Neil didn't just walk away from music, he ran. 6 years off the grid, drowning in regrets, avoiding microphones like they were emotional landmines. Enter C, 20 years old, university student, socially awkward, big eyes, bigger dreams, and yes, a longtime fan of Neil's music. The kind of kid who knows every Magnet lyric by heart but forgets how to form complete sentences when standing 2 feet away from his idol. Their worlds shouldn't collide. But when C gets invited to help Neil write songs for a comeback album, fate clearly had other plans. At first, disaster. Neil's grumpy, C's nervous. Their first songwriting session feels more like a bad first date, with creative differences flying faster than guitar picks at a rock concert. Neil questions C's talent. C questions Neil's attitude. Audiences love a slow burn, but this was practically arson. But slowly, something shifts. C's raw lyrics start touching nerves Neil thought were long dead. Neil's tough love mentoring pushes C to find his voice, not just musically but emotionally. Somewhere between late-night studio sessions and vulnerable confessions, barriers fall. Glances linger, lyrics get personal, and just like that, music isn't the only thing they're creating together. Their relationship becomes a duet of healing. Two broken hearts finding ways to fill each other's empty spaces. For every note C plays, Neil finds a little more hope. For every smile Neil shows, C feels a little braver. It's messy, it's beautiful, and oh yeah, totally unscripted. By the time the final song is recorded, this isn't just about a comeback album anymore. It's about two men rewriting their own definitions of love and identity. C is no longer the shy fanboy. Neil is no longer the unreachable rock star. They're two equals, standing side by side, learning that love doesn't come with a script or a safety net. Their story shows us that same-sex love isn't just valid. It's epic, it's tender, it's complicated in the best possible way. Neil and C aren't just giving us a BL romance, they're giving us permission to feel deeply, to mess up, to try again, and to love like it's the only song that matters. So, next time someone says love stories like theirs don't belong on screen, just tell them this. Sometimes the most powerful notes come from the heart. And Chu Yi-ping Heng Jiu, starring in Anti-Reset. Chu Yi-ping didn't plan to fall in love. He planned routines, backups, and how to disappear if needed. But love? That was never part of the blueprint. Especially not with someone like Heng Jiu, who enters every room like a walking glitch in the system, smirks like he's hiding secrets, and lives like the rules were made to be mocked. Their first meeting was less romantic fate and more wrong place, wrong time, wrong folder. Yi-ping was trying to stay invisible. Heng Jiu? He was practically glowing with danger. And yet, between the tension, the sarcasm, and the smoke from a half-broken server room, something quietly ignited. A flicker. A question neither dared to answer yet. Could this chaos be something worth holding on to? As the walls of their world closed in, their connection opened up. They didn't need candlelight or dates. They had cracked screens, passwords only they knew, and a language built entirely on glances and late-night silences. In a system that erased identities and punished tenderness, Yi-ping and Heng Jiu carved out something fragile, but real. They weren't the kind of couple that kissed in public or updated their status. But when Heng Jiu risked exposure just to leave Yi-ping a note, that was louder than any public declaration. When Yi-ping, usually so guarded, whispered, "I trust you," it hit like a bomb. Not the kind that explodes, the kind that transforms. And what made it beautiful wasn't how perfect it looked. It was how stubbornly it survived. In fear, in code, in quiet rebellion. Anti-Reset isn't just about corrupt systems and resistance. It's about the kind of love that blooms where it's least allowed. The kind that doesn't ask permission. Yi-ping and Heng Jiu didn't fall in love to make a statement, but they became one. Not because they shouted, because they stayed. Through fear, through fire, through the urge to run. And let's face it, they're a mess. Yi-ping overthinks everything. Heng Jiu trusts no one, sometimes not even himself, but together, they work. They're not perfect, but they're possible. And sometimes that's more powerful than any revolution. Because queer love doesn't need to be loud to matter. It just needs to be seen. And thanks to them, we saw it. Between every stolen look, every shared risk, every choice to love despite everything. Finally, Xing Xu Lu Hui from Impression of Youth. In a quiet corner of rural Taiwan, Xing thought he was signing up for a peaceful one-month teaching assignment. Fresh out of art school, carrying more self-doubt than luggage, he arrived with one goal: survive the month and go home. No big plans, no big drama, just pencils, sketchbooks, and a whole lot of awkward small talk with strangers. But life, and let's be honest, the universe, had other ideas. Because sitting in the back of his classroom, with that lazy posture and half-hearted attitude, was Xu Lu Hui. The kind of student who acted like he didn't care about anything, but whose eyes gave him away every time. Their connection didn't explode overnight. It unfolded slowly, like watercolor bleeding into paper, a little too close during outdoor sketching sessions, a little too long staring at the same sunset. Xing told himself it was just mentorship, just part of being a good teacher. But when Lu Hui's gaze lingered, when his compliments slipped out more sincere than playful, it became impossible to ignore. There was one afternoon when the rain poured unexpectedly, soaking both of them as they ran for cover under a small pavilion, breathless, standing too close. That was the first time Xing noticed how fast his heart could race for someone and how hard it was to look away. Impression of Youth isn't just about art or adolescence or first love. It's about how love, real love, often comes softly, unannounced. In the middle of rainy afternoons and unfinished sketches, Xing and Xu Lu Hui's story reminds us that sometimes the people who change us the most aren't the ones we were looking for. Their bond was fragile, tender, and achingly human. A slow realization that what they felt went far beyond teacher and student, beyond friendship, beyond what either of them had words for. For viewers, their journey is a beautiful celebration of LGBTQ+ love, one built on emotional intimacy, trust, and courage. Without breaking rules, without crossing lines, but with enough chemistry and emotional tension to make your heart ache in the best way possible. Because love doesn't need big declarations to be real. Sometimes it's just two people standing side by side, painting their way out of loneliness and into something beautiful. 12 couples, 12 journeys, but one truth echoed through them all. Love is love. Bold, beautiful, and unapologetic. These stories didn't ask for permission. They simply showed up, soft in some moments, fierce in others, and reminded us that the heart doesn't care about rules, only connection. So if you believe in stories that break silence, that celebrate every kind of love, stay with us. Subscribe, comment, share, because your voice keeps this light burning. We're here to celebrate queer love, boldly, truthfully, beautifully. And with your support, we're just getting started. This is your space, your voice, your story. We'll keep telling the stories, and together, we'll make sure love never goes unseen.